Beyond Reason Radio.
Where to begin? That might be the question of the hour, because there is so much to get to when it comes to the Democrat debates, which of course were beyond reason. And since something is beyond reason, we have to talk about it this hour, because this is Beyond Reason Radio. Yes, Yaffee is back on a Friday night for his show, my show. I'm talking in the third person now, Tom Benson.
That's not good.
Please don't let me do that. How arrogant is that? Yeah, welcome to another edition of Beyond Reason Radio. I'm Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason, the voice of truth, the conscience of WFLA. Here, and we're on until 9 p.m. actually, right here on News Radio 93.1 WFLA. Of course, we have to talk about the Democrat debates, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. Most of what you heard today on most of the radio shows, which is fine, I get it, is who performed the best, who was the winner, who was the loser, who can beat Trump, this and that and all that stuff, and that's fine. But I want to do something different, because as I was watching the debates, well, we'll get to that in a second, but first I have to introduce Mr. Tom Benson.
Well, hello there.
How are you, Tom?
I am fine. It's Friday. Let's get through this.
I have a feeling after this hour, you're just going to be like, I don't want to hear any more about debates or Democrats
well, I was just
for
thinking,
2 days.
You know what I was just thinking?
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that. I was thinking, we have to do this again in another month after they have the next one in Detroit.
Hopefully, eventually, you'll get whittled down to just one debate. You know, that'd be nice.
That was the other thing I was wondering. Who it will drop out before the next debates, if anyone?
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a feeling, though, they're going to want Elizabeth Warren in the main debate. Mm-hmm. And maybe Tulsi Gabbard. Be interesting to see her in the main debate. But, okay, instead of doing this whole who's the winner, who's the loser, is Warren now the front runner? Whoa, what she did to Biden. Biden looked older. You know, we could all do that. But I want to do something a little bit different, because I just have to ask the question, how in the hell did we get here? How did we get here as a country? Because I'm watching both of these debates. And okay, this is what the Democrats basically stand for. I'm going to go through a list here. And my list is not hyperbolic or bombastic or twisting. It's pretty much what they stand for. And they're openly standing for this stuff now. They want free government health care for all. Free government-provided abortions up to the moment of birth for all. Castro called it reproductive justice, is what he said.
You're kidding.
What does that even mean, reproductive justice? So justice is, if I can't afford something, the government provides it for me. If I can't afford to pay for my own abortion, it's unjust that I can't afford it. What? How does that make sense? But that's what they stand for. So free government college. Free government paid maternity leave, free government provided pre-K for your kids. There was one candidate, and this I guarantee you will grow in the Democrat Party, government guaranteed income.
Oh, yeah.
Some candidate, Andrew Yang, wants to provide everyone $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. And he has no idea how to pay for it.
Yeah.
Isn't that typical?
Gun confiscation of some kind. Mm-hmm. That's what they want. Some kind of gun outlawing.
But they call it common sense.
Yeah, common sense. They want to ban, I mean, they're basically getting to the point of gun confiscation. They'll say, oh, we want to ban assault weapons. They can barely define what that actually means, but okay, fine.
If it looks scary, take it.
So, well, I mean, what else are they providing for free? I'm sure I'm missing something they're providing for free.
Smartphones?
No, that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, that's already been done.
More money for low-income houses and all this stuff. And then, of course, there's open borders. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And especially that came up a lot in the first debate, but also the second debate. Open borders. Not only open borders, but those who come in illegally deserve free government health care and probably free government college tuition, pre-K, paid maternity leave, all of these things. I'm not done, man. I'm just started letting all the criminals out of prison, you know.
Well, didn't Beto come up with a war tax?
Yeah, war tax. Oh, I didn't even get you. You know, we want to talk about taxes. You want to raise taxes, of course, on businesses. Oh, but the lower class, we won't raise taxes on them. The bottom 50% barely pays any income tax already. So you're going to lower their tax? I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. So, but they want to let out a bunch of criminals. You know, let them out of the jails because that'll solve the problem. Even though crime rates are at record lows and took a dive in the 90s after crime reform was passed, we want to reverse that now. You want to talk foreign policy? Basically, pull out of made other countries, bribe those we're against, Iran and stuff, bribe them to do what we want. I mean, this is all just 5 years ago. This was radical stuff. When Obama was running, this was radical stuff. You know, I often hear Bernie when he talks in his debates or whatever, in his speeches, we're going to transform America. You know, he's got his hand waving and all that stuff. Bud says follow the bouncing ball. That's what it seems like.
I also like what de Blasio in New York says. Oh, there's plenty of money. It's just in the wrong people's hands.
I know. Yeah. Class warfare stuff. You know, Jonah Goldberg tweeted out during the first debate, we now interrupt this corporate America bashing to pay for this debate through sponsors from corporate America or something like that. I mean, corporate. Oh, that was another one. Break up the big companies, whether it's Amazon or break up big tech, or maybe even have the government take that over too. I mean, AOC was out there saying, and Bernie Sanders have said they want to get rid of payday lending. And if you need a bank in your lower class, you could go to the post office and do it, like make the post office into a bank. I mean, over and over and over again. And I'm just thinking, Bernie Sanders is right about one thing. This would totally transform the United States of America. This is totally transformative. And frankly, and I don't say this lightly because I'm usually reluctant to say a lot of stuff like rhetoric like this, but a lot of this used to be considered un-American, did it not? Un-American. We now expect the federal government to constantly provide us with things, whatever it is. And it's now like the flood doors have opened, the dam has burst, and now it's up to the government to provide us all of these things. And all these things I just listed to you, pretty much most of them, it's not the role of government to do any of those things. It's never been the role of government to do any of those things. And I'm thinking, how in the world did we get here where we now expect the government to take care of us? You know what? I'm going to do something a little bit different. This is really instructive. Can you skip in the audio? I warned you this might happen, Tom Benson. We're going to skip. Go to Harris Cut 1. It should be a pretty short cut. Harris Cut 1. Because she says something, and this was like one of her big moments. It's a really short Kamala Harris cut. She said something, and this was one of her big moments. I want you to actually listen to what she said and really think about what she said here. Here it is.
Hey, guys, you know what? America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table. Yes?
Now, a lot of people were like, oh, my gosh, look at her. They're arguing, and she comes up. What a line. Yeah, she cares about the people. Listen to what she said. America doesn't want us to get into a food fight. America wants to know how we're going to put food on their table. How we, the government, the Democrat Party, Congress, the president, whatever, is going to put food on your table. I never expected the government to put food on my table. It's not your job, Kamala Harris, to put food on my table. That used to be the American way that we provide for ourselves, that if you work hard and you're given the opportunity in this country and you work, like I said, and get a paycheck, then you can put food on your kid's table. And instead, both parties used to be, we're going to give you the opportunity to provide for yourself. It's not that way anymore with the Democrat Party. It's now, we're going to put food on your table. We're going to give you health care. We're going to put you in college. We're going to give you a house. We're going to do this and that for you. Thank you, great masters. Thank you, government overlords. How please, more bread, sir. And I'm thinking, how in the hell did we get here? This isn't America. So how did we get here is the question. Couple of answers, I think, to this. I was really thinking about this after PM Orlando earlier. How did we get here? One, we're just not taught American history and American civics anymore. Anyone who has a basic understanding of the founding of this country, an American government, and the Constitution knows that it is not the government's job. It is not the proper role of government to provide you with all of this stuff. And there was a reason for that. Because when the government controls all that stuff, it gets in the way of your individual freedom. We used to be a country about individual rights and free markets. And that if there was a problem, we, the people, would take care of it, not the government. But we're not taught that anymore. We're not taught civics anymore. Nobody has a basic understanding of the Constitution and history. They think it's the government's job to do all this stuff. But there was actually another thing that I thought of. When did a lot of this change? Frankly, I think a lot of this changed under Barack Obama. And it's not necessarily because of Obama. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Obama seems moderate now compared to the Democrat Party. Think of that. Did you ever think those words would come out of my mouth in just 8 years? It's been less than 4 years since he's been in office, and now he's too moderate for the Democrat Party. But what happened under Obama that changed our relationship to the government? Obamacare. And the Great Recession was one thing as well, giant bailouts, but it was really Obamacare. Obamacare, once it became the job of the federal government to provide you health care in some kind of way, even though it wasn't full socialized medicine, it was a step in the door to the government providing you health care. Once it became the job of the federal government to provide you health care, our fundamental relationship with our government completely changed in this country. Our understanding of what the job of government is completely changed in this country. And people like me and other conservatives and Charles Crowd, that's why we were so against Obamacare in the beginning. Because once that happened, this country was on the path to ruin and socialism. Because, like I said, it completely, fundamentally changed the role of government in our lives. And it's not a good thing. And I watched that debate, and beyond the performances and all that stuff, I couldn't believe it. I never expected the government to provide all these things. And I'm thinking, how can the American people put up with this? And of course, one of the biggest things that I focused on was the border debate, because that seemed to be the focus of Democrats because they think they can beat Trump with that. But they're basically wanting open borders. And I'm thinking, this is nuts. How can your average American think this is a good idea and good for the future of the country? Even if you want a lot of illegals to stay, what they're proposing is way beyond that. And it started with the first debate. And we're going to go over some of the stuff I have to talk about in the first debate, some of the stuff I had to talk about from the second debate, and much more. You got to stay tuned. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
I mean, I really don't even have to tell you what's beyond reason on this week's show. The Democrat debates were beyond reason. Now, some people are going to say, oh, you're just such a Republican hack focusing on the Democrats. Well, I mean, there was no Republican debate, so I can't comment on Republicans if there's no Republican debate. Trust me, when that was happening, I had lots of criticisms for some Republicans too. But we're focusing on the Democrat debates because that's what happened this week. So, calm down. This is Michael Yaffee, by the way, your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at PMOWFLA. And by the way, if you ever miss any Beyond Reason episodes, I post a bunch of different things on that podcast channel. So just you can get on the iHeartRadio, search Beyond Reason Radio, or anywhere else podcasts are available. You can review it and give me a good review if you would, please. Now, it is time to go through some of this audio sound cuts. And I really didn't know how I was going to do this, so I figured, okay, we'll just start, because this is really recapping the week, this show. I only do it once a week. We'll start with the first debate. The first debate had, Elizabeth Warren, Bill de Blasio, John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Klobuchar, Hickenlooper, and so forth. So we'll go over some of the highlights. And one person, Julian Castro, who made a lot of noise. And really most of the noise, honestly, from both debates I noticed, had to do with the issue of illegal immigration, or whatever they call it, undocumented immigration or something, whatever. And Julian Castro really got into this. And he has a new idea on how to deal with illegal immigration that, it's pretty beyond reason. This is from the first debate. Here it is.
My plan, and I'm glad to see that Senator Booker, Senator Warren, and Governor Inslee agree with me on this, my plan also includes getting rid of Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, to go back to the way we used to treat this when somebody comes across the border, not to criminalize desperation, to treat that as a civil violation.
So not to criminalize desperation, but to treat that as a civil violation. Okay, the first Beyond Reason thing from the first debate. So we have thousands of people that are rushing to our border right now from Central American countries. They've done polls recently where literally millions of people want to come to America.
Mm-hmm.
If we decriminalize them doing that, what incentive is there? What will stop them? Nothing will stop them. You think, all I have to do is pay a fine and I get into America? How is this not de facto open borders? It's totally open borders. Now, some people I know on the left, they tell me on Twitter, they think that's fine. They think open borders is great. I don't know how any reasonable person can think a country can keep its sovereignty and its culture and its government doesn't go bankrupt by absorbing millions of people like that.
Where would you put them? Look what's happening in Los Angeles, Seattle, and San Francisco. People are sleeping on the streets.
And we're not talking about an orderly system where people come into this country. You're talking about millions of poor, desperate people coming in at once who don't speak the language and are going to expect free government benefits. How in the world does this make any sense to anybody? But that's what they're calling for. Now, Julian Castro, the next day, was on MSNBC saying, no, I'm not for open borders. Here it is.
This is not open borders. That's simply a talking point. What it would do is treat people with compassion and respect. They would still be in a judicial process. I would also say, Chuck, as a lot of your viewers know, this is how we treated these types of violations all the way up until about 2004. They were treated as from the late 1920s until 2004, when we had something called a Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act in place, where this could be treated as a crime, but it wasn't. It was treated as a civil violation. And I believe that that's the better route to go.
And so he's saying, well, this is the better route to go. And then later on, he was saying, what we could do is we could just monitor them. And Chuck Todd's like, ankle monitors? No. We'll just have some officials visit them and make sure they'll still be part of the system. You're kidding me, right? If we just let them in based on a civil violation, the Democrat Party is going to say, well, they have to stay now. They're already here. They have to stay. They're already a part of the country.
Mm-hmm. Anchor babies.
Yeah, and they're going to have kids. And ICE is going to say, well, yeah, we treat it as a civil violation. We put their asylum process through, and we realize that they don't meet the standards of asylum. They need to be deported. You can't deport them.
They're already here.
ICE, those evil ICE agents ripping apart families. Remember what Nancy Pelosi said earlier this week? The children. So you expect me to believe that treating it as a civil violation isn't open borders? The illegals are going to know it's open borders, and they're going to rush here, and they're going to basically get in, and yeah, there'll be some kind of process. They'll either ignore that, because that already happens a lot, or they'll know that the Democrat Party eventually is going to let them stay. So it's de facto open borders. It really, really is. It is beyond reason to me that someone who makes a lot of sense on this is Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio. He's not an immigration hawk by any means. But even he commented on this, and he's exactly right. Here's what he said.
We have laws that are basically inviting people to do this. When somebody makes the journey, they call back home, hey, I made it, that encourages more people to do it and to bring their kids with them, or sometimes to send their kids with a stranger. And we have laws that are luring people into this dangerous journey, and that has to be fixed. I'm ready to do that right now. So not only do they not want to do that, they actually want to make it even more appealing for people to enter the country illegally. This is not an anti-immigrant thing. We admit 1 million people a year into this country legally and permanently, more than anybody else does. They become permanent residents, and many go on to become citizens. This has to do with, are we going to have laws or not have laws on who can come in, how you come in, and when you come in? And if you're going to have laws but you don't enforce them, you don't have those laws.
How is this controversial? How is what he said controversial? Any reasonable person knows, it probably makes sense to have laws. We want to accept immigrants, but we can't just let them in, millions of in, all at once. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know if they have diseases. They have no way to support themselves. We need an orderly system, at least, if we're going to be a sovereign country. This didn't used to be controversial, people, and now it is to the Democrat Party. What's the next cut I have up there? Is it the Holman cut, or is it
Dems?
Okay, so yes, then you have from the debate last night, the second debate, where they're asked, would you provide illegal immigrants?
I'm sorry, it is Holman.
Oh, okay. Well, let's play the Holman guy. This is Thomas Homan, former ICE director. And, everyone's blaming Trump for what's going on the border. You would think that Trump is like the witch from Hansel and Gretel who got little kids, lured them with candy, and then threw them in cages ready to eat them or something. Like, that's what's going on at the border. But Holman points out that you all realize that Obama did this first, right? Y'all realize that Obama was already doing this, and y'all didn't care back then. He literally set up the cages. A lot of the Dem candidates were at one of the detention centers today in Florida. Do you think Trump built that detention center? Do you think Trump put it there? Do you think Trump started running that thing? That thing's been there way before Trump got into office. When did all that start? Oh, gee, it was under Obama. And Holman points that out.
No one talks about FY12 when under President Obama, I removed 409,000 people.
And
no
by the
one
way,
talked. There wasn't argument back then.
Right.
This is about President Trump.
Right.
This is about them trying to shame him and see him fail.
All right, so there you go, and he's exactly right on that. And then last night's debate, the Democrats were asked to raise their hands if they would support giving free health care to illegal immigrants. Here it is.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross a border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we can see them?
And they all raised their hands. What is going on when Rubio seems like an immigration hawk to compare to the Democrat Party? Something is going in. So we're going to allow them all to come in as a civil violation. So they'll just pay a fine and they'll be here basically and they'll stay. And then we're going to provide them free health care. And we're $20 trillion in debt. We already have thousands of unaccompanied minors coming here. More of them are going to come in. And we're just encouraging more of this. How does a country stay a sovereign country? Any reasonable person knows it can't. We're going to talk more about the first debate. Tulsi Gabbard seemed to be the star of the first debate to a lot of people. And I'll tell you why her comments were beyond reason, too. We'll get to that and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
I was just sitting here thinking, in the first part of the show, I was talking about reasons, how we got here, how we got to the point where the Democrats became this radical. I said one was lack of education, the civics and the Constitution, American history. 2 has to do with Obamacare. Once government is taking care of your health care, it fundamentally changed our relationship with the government. But I think the other reason is Americans are spoiled. We just don't know how good we have it, frankly. I think we just forget how good we have it in this country, so we expect more. We feel entitled to more, not understanding where all this actually came from in the first place. We don't have real perspective on things. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're going through the Democrat debates. I'm still on the first debate. In some ways, the first debate was more interesting, even though the second debate had the bigger players. Most of it was just Kamala Harris and a couple other people yelling at Biden sounding old, and Bernie was kind of Bernie. So the first debate, at least started us down this road. But a lot of people thought in the first debate that Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, a lot of people didn't know who she was. Now, when I was driving on my vacation, she actually had a billboard in South Carolina. I have no idea why. She's from Hawaii, but she had a presidential billboard in South Carolina on I-95. So that was very interesting. But a lot of people didn't know who she was. She came out, and most of her thing is on foreign policy. I have a feeling she's actually auditioning for Secretary of State or UN ambassador. I think that's basically what her run for president is right now, on audition for, if a Democrat wins, that she'll get one of those positions. But a lot of people thought she was great. Even some Trump supporters really liked what she said here. And it had to do with an exchange she had with Tim Ryan over Afghanistan and foreign policy. And everyone loved what she said, but what she said was wrong. Here's that exchange.
And the lesson that I've learned over the years is that you have to stay engaged in these situations. Nobody likes it. It's long. It's tedious. But right now so I would say we must be engaged in this. We must have our State Department engaged. We must have our military engaged to the extent they need to be.
Is that what you will tell the parents of those 2 soldiers who were just killed in Afghanistan? Well, we just have to be engaged. As a soldier, I will tell you that answer is unacceptable. We have to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. We are in a place in Afghanistan where we have lost so many lives. We've spent so much money that's coming out of every one of our pockets, money that should be going into communities here at home, meeting the needs of the people here at home. We are no better off in Afghanistan today than we were when this war began. This is why it's so important to have a president and commander-in-chief who knows the cost of war and who's ready to do the job on day one. I am ready to do that job when I walk into the Oval Office. Thank you.
I would just say I don't want to be engaged. I wish we were spending all this money in places that I've represented that have been completely forgotten and we were rebuilding. But the reality of it is, if the United States isn't engaged, the Taliban will grow and they will have bigger, bolder terrorist acts. We have got to have some present there. The
Taliban was there long before we came in. They'll be there long before we leave.
Well,
we cannot keep U.S. troops deployed to Afghanistan thinking that we're going to somehow squash this Taliban that has been there, that every other country that's tried
I didn't say squash them. When we weren't in there, they started flying planes into our buildings. So I'm just saying right now,
the Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. Al-Qaeda did.
Tulsi Gabbard, a lot of people says it because we have to pull out of the wars. And I respect her service. She was in the military. I respect her service. But Tim Ryan is right. Tim Ryan's giving you the hard truth there. That, of course, we have to stay engaged. Because if we don't, and he's right, nobody wants to hear this. It's long and tedious. But he's giving you the hard truth there. You have to stay engaged. Because if we don't, they will grow and fill that vacuum. It's just the hard truth. And yes, we have lost lives and a lot of money. But the money doesn't compare to what the Democrats want to spend on other socialist stuff. And the lives doesn't even compare to most wars in history. And we have gained a lot there. And she said, well, the Taliban didn't attack us. Al-Qaeda attacked us. I thought you were ready to be commander-in-chief. You realize that the Taliban was protecting Al-Qaeda, right? That the whole thing was that we had asked the Taliban to turn over bin Laden and to get out of the way so we could fight Al-Qaeda, and they said no, that the Taliban basically gave terrorists a safe haven in the country. That's where a lot of this come from. And that they're still spreading a radical Islamist ideology throughout that region. And you act like, oh, those are just two separate things? I thought you said you were ready to be commander-in-chief. Not only that, oh, the Taliban's been there long before we were. You didn't realize the Taliban's only been there since, what, the 80s? Not even? They haven't been there forever. So it's like she doesn't understand history. But Tim Ryan was right. That, yes, the Taliban didn't directly attack us, but they kind of did in a way because they basically helped Al-Qaeda, basically believed in the same ideology, and basically fought us when we went over there trying to get Al-Qaeda. And the fact is, if we leave that region, and if we leave a lot of regions in the world, something's going to fill that vacuum, and it's going to be chaotic. Tim Ryan was actually giving you the hard truth. Nobody wanted to listen to it. And it's a shame. Now, the only one who actually made any sense in both debates, believe it or not, was John Delaney. He was in the first debate. He's the only one who had any common sense there. He's the one who got booed recently because he did a speech at a Democrat conference where he decried socialism. We don't need to be socialists. He was one of the people, and he got booed. But he came out, and he's talking about health care. And I don't even agree with everything he said, but it's like, oh, my gosh, at least this guy has some common sense. Here it is.
Why are you defending private insurance? Say they like their private health insurance, by the way. It should be noted that 100 million Americans, I think we should be the party that keeps what's working and fixes what's broken. Doesn't that make sense? We should give everyone in this country health care as a basic human right for free. Full stop. But we should also give them the option to buy private insurance. Why do we have to stand for taking away something from people? And also, it's bad policy. If you go to every hospital in this country and you ask them one question, which is, how would it have been for you last year if every one of your bills were paid at the Medicare rate? Every single hospital administrator said they would close. And the Medicare for All bill requires payments to stay at current Medicare rates. So to some extent, we're basically supporting a bill that will have every hospital closed. My dad was a union electrician, right? I actually grew up in a working-class family. He loved the health care that the IBEW gave him. And I just always think about my dad and anything I would do from a policy perspective. He'd look at me and he'd say, good job, John, for getting health care for every American. But why are you taking my health care away?
So, Delaney, you get out of there. You get out of that Democrat debate making all that sense there. You hear what he said? He's absolutely right. They're talking about Medicare for all, putting more people in the Medicare system, and the hospitals are like, we can't afford the Medicare patients we have because the reimbursement rates are crazy. How in the world do you expect us to just go for Medicare for all now? That we're going to force millions of people onto that system that already isn't working. How do you expect that to work? John Delaney actually making some sense there. Oh, no, you can't be in a Democrat primary debate. You're not for full socialism. He's right, but he's saying, healthcare is a right. It's not a human right. It's not a right. It's not how rights work. And he wants some kind of universal healthcare system, but he's like, look, I worked with unions. They used to provide good healthcare. We don't want to kick everyone off. He's actually kind of making some sense. And the Democrat Party won't even pay attention to him. He was the only one, literally, that made any sense in the two debates. Let's move on to the second debate now. There was a lot of focus on Kamala Harris, sorry. I keep pronouncing her name wrong. How could I do that? But I want to focus a little bit on Pete Buttigieg because I still think he's pretty dangerous, and he kind of reminds me of Obama in a lot of ways. I don't know if he has a chance to win now, but maybe in the future. But he said something that, of course, is pretty interesting and beyond reason. Let's play it for you. From the second debate, here it is.
The Republican Party likes to cloak itself in the language of religion. Now, our party doesn't talk about that as much, largely for a very good reason, which was we are committed to the separation of church and state, and we stand for people of any religion and people of no religion. But we should call out hypocrisy when we see it. And for a party that associates itself with Christianity, to say that it is okay to suggest that God would smile on the division of families at the hands of federal agents, that God would condone putting children in cages, has lost all claim to ever use religious language again.
So this is a way to win religious voters now, to call religious Republicans You know what, Christians out there who vote Republican usually, you're actually not real Christians. You know what? God wants open borders. God smiles on open borders. You know why Pete's doing this, by the way? Because he realizes that the Democrat Party has a problem when they're for basically abortion up to the moment of birth, and he's an open homosexual. He understands he has a problem with what the Bible says, so he's going to make it seem like, oh, well, I have to attack this somehow. I'm just going to say, oh, no. I'm the real Christian. You're not the real Christian. So if you actually believe in enforcing our borders, that means you're not a real Christian. Now, I understand that some of the conditions at the border are not that great, and we need to do better at that, but I think it was the Democrats who were trying to block a funding bill to get that done. Does this mean Obama's not a real Christian, by the way, Pete? Because Obama started this. Is he not a real Christian? I don't know. So he's playing this card now. He's going after Christians, and because he realizes that there's a problem there. Now, I will give Pete credit for one thing he said. I don't think he realized it, but he actually made a really good argument for lower taxes. Yes. I don't think he realized, like I said, I don't think he realized he did it, but he did when he said this.
Tariffs are taxes, and Americans are going to pay on average $800 more a year because of these tariffs. Meanwhile, China is investing so that they could soon be able to run circles around us in artificial intelligence. And this president is fixated on the China relationship as if all that mattered was the export balance on dishwashers. We got a much bigger issue on our hands, but at a moment when their authoritarian model is being held up as an alternative to ours because ours looks so chaotic compared to theirs right now because of our internal divisions.
Okay, so yeah, they're holding up their authoritarian model. So let's be more like them. But anyway, that's what the Democrats seem to be like most of the time. But anyway, you know what he said there? He said tariffs are taxes. So when you raise tariffs, that is passed on to the consumer, and the consumers will have to pay more for things because of the higher tariffs, which means consumers will have to pay more for things because of the higher taxes. Wait a minute. Are you saying that higher taxes could hurt business in this country and hurt consumers in this country and make things cost more in this country, Pete Buttigieg? You realize what you were just arguing for? If a tariff is a tax, which he's right, it is, he was trying to go after Trump and his trade policy, which I have too, but he basically made the argument that tariffs are higher taxes and that hurts the economy. Now, I had one person on Twitter trolling me saying, oh, well, he didn't say, he just means lower taxes for lower income people. And I said, that's not what he said. Tariffs are not taxes on lower income people. Tariffs are taxes on businesses. And the lower income people are hurt when businesses are taxed more. And yet, this is the party that wants to raise the corporate income tax rate again, which would hurt business, which, what do you know, will hurt the lower income people who are required on those businesses to buy things. Look at that, Pete Buttigieg arguing for lower taxes helping the economy. Wow. See, well, so there was one good thing in that second debate there.
Save that cut.
Right. All right, we'll finish up. Maybe I'll end with something that made Yaffee laughy as well. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So I just got a text in from Carl Jackson. He's listening. He was on right before me. We were talking about Tulsi Gabbard in the last segment or whatever, and a lot of people thought she did pretty well in the first debate. Carl thinks this. He goes, I think Tulsi Gabbard got so many Google hits after the debate because men were hoping to see her in a bathing suit. She's pretty, but unimpressive.
Yeah.
I mean, she did okay. She sounded fine, but she, like I said, she is auditioning for for Secretary of State or UN ambassador. She was complaining about not getting enough time. She complained afterwards that, she thinks the moderators were biased against her. Those moderators were biased against certain people. There's no doubt about it. When Joe Biden gets 14 minutes and Andrew Yang gets like 3, I mean, they were, but, they know how to get the ratings. They know what they're doing.
They're going to concentrate on the people with a higher profile because they want great ratings.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go over one more cut when it comes to the second debate. We've gone over the first debate, some things on the second debate. Bernie Sanders, how are you going to actually get Medicare for all done? Here was his answer.
Government-run plan. None of the states that have tried something like that, California, Vermont, New York has struggled with it, have been successful. If politicians can't make it work in those states, how would you implement it on a national level? How does this work?
Listen, I find it hard to believe that every other major country on earth, including my neighbor 50 miles north of me, Canada, somehow has figured out a way to provide health care to every man, woman, and child, and in most cases, they're spending 50% per capita what we are spending. Let's be clear. Let us be very clear. The function of health care today, from the insurance and drug company perspective, is not to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. The function of the healthcare system today is to make billions in profits for the insurance companies. And last year, if you could believe it, while we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and I will lower prescription drug prices in half in this country, top 10 companies made $69 billion in profit. They will spend hundreds of millions of dollars lying to the American people, telling us why we cannot have a Medicare for all single-payer program.
I just have to follow up there. How do you implement it on a national level? How do you implement it on a national level, given the fact it's not succeeded in other states? Of course.
I will tell you how we'll do it. We'll do it the way real change has always taken place, whether it was the labor movement, the civil rights movement, or the women's movement. We will have Medicare for all, when tens of millions of people are prepared to stand up and tell the insurance companies and the drug companies that their day is gone, that health care is a human right, not something to make huge profits off.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Williamson.
So he didn't answer the question. He had absolutely no answer. Oh, well, other countries do it, blah, blah, blah.
Venezuela did it.
Yeah, Cuba did it, the Soviet Union. That's a good point, actually. I mean, yeah, but they also still have a role for private insurance. And a lot of those countries, you have to buy supplemental insurance because the government insurance, sucks. And so they have to buy insurance on top of that. So it costs more, and they've already had all these problems. But, it's like, but profit's evil. That's basically Bernie Sanders. We will go after the evil profits. All right. So there you go. I could go over healthcare, but I've done that many times. Let's move on to things that made Yaffee laughy. So we're going to go to our most trusted news source out there, the Babylon Bee, for things that made Yaffee laughy. In this headline, in move to appeal to Hispanic voters, Beto O'Rourke chugs entire bottle of authentic Cholula hot sauce. Actually sounds good. You know me, I love hot sauce. I did. After being asked a question on immigration at the Dem debate, he attempted to appeal Hispanic voters by, speaking in Spanish. And then by jumping in on his lectern, producing a bottle of Cholula hot sauce out of his suit coat pocket and chugging the entire thing in one swift motion. Oh, that's good stuff. I mean, it's almost true. Of course, one headline said, experts agree loser of first Dem debate was America.
Yeah.
So there you go. I appreciate you all listening to the show today so far. Well, I'll be back next time. This is Beyond Reason Radio. Catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available, and see you next time.